Okay then, well, I'm on my way down to our accommodation in the Cotswolds, and I've come across this lovely old church, so we're going to have a quick picnic, and I'm going to put down on paper the basic washes, and then perhaps this evening or another evening I'll actually be painting the final touches. Lovely old building, good composition. So let's get started. Okay, well the first thing I'm going to do is damp the paper around the church tower and down as far as the bottom of the church, but around all the building. So mainly I need to keep that building white paper. That's the key to this one, I think, initially anyway, until we start putting other colour on. Lovely old building, lovely old Cotswold stonework, and I'm going to start off. It's going to be a plain, simple blue. May put a bit of yellow in the yellowy brown, just to warm some of a little bit of cloud work up to the right. Perhaps a little over there, a little bit of a Cotswold colour in the sky. But other than that, it's just a matter of using cobalt blue. As we use cobalt, could use raw sienna, ultramarine. Let's use a bit of cobalt. Light's coming from the right, so we'll have the stronger blue over on the left hand side. I want to be fairly strong, and the blue goes down in between the buttress areas. So that's always an interesting area to try and create the feeling that we've got openings there. So that's that. A little bit on the underside there, a little bit there, and allow that just to soak away, just a little bit stronger up there. There you go. That'll all die back very, very shortly into the underpainting. There we go. So that's the blue. And it gets weaker as you come down into the lower area. A little bit of lighter tone there wouldn't hurt, because that's heading towards the light. There you go. A little bit more blue in that area. Just form the top of that cloud. A little bit of light going out top right hand corner. Then we come down the side of the church, and that, let's just leave that cloud there like that. That is all you need to do for a sky of this type of subject, because most of the subject is actually the building. Sky needs to be treated very simply and quite light. Next area will be laying some colour on to the distance, because I want to soften that. It's distant hills, and it's a wooded area. All we need is a bit of yellow and a bit of blue, cobalt or ultramarine. Let's try ultramarine. There we go, blue and cobalt. It's more or less coming up a cerulean colour, really, a little bit of yellow, and let that just soak in nice and quickly painted. Lovely blue that denotes hills, wooded area in the distance, cutting across the distance, picking around the building. And as we come into the lower area, the green actually gets a little bit more vibrant. So you just add a stronger yellow with that. Using cadmium yellow, and the initial colour was yellow ochre, holding the line of the building. Now perhaps a little bit more in there. There we go. And finally adding a stronger blue to that cadmium to get a much fresher green. There we go. Quite dark. Don't be too light with this distant. We want the building to light up. So that comes there and slopes off there. We have one or two little touches, just as if there's trees growing into that distant area. And to me, initially, that's all you need to do for that. Nice greens, and then just gently pull that down, because we're going to have a really dark bush there, and it comes down into that middle distance area. Okay, now we can concentrate on the land the building sits on. So we're going to use cadmium with Prussian blue and a little burnt sienna. Really is, it's important to keep it fresh green, because once you go dull, if you go too dull with your greens, then our job to pull back. And it's quite spiky grasses around the path area leading to the church, and painting around the old gravestones. That's quite important. Leaving those white paper between that one there, simply painting around those. And as we come into the foreground, just adding a little bit of brown to that, bit of the brown colour. As we come into the foreground, a bit more yellow to give a fresher sort of grass look to that area. Beautiful. And of course, in the foreground, probably will be quite dark. So Prussian, burnt sienna. It just gives a bit of shadow work. There is some shadow coming across there, so we may as well put that on while we're painting, because if we do that now, we'll save a lot of work later on. A casting shadow there, and up there, and another one there. So we can just see where our casting shadows are, and we put them on. There we go. And they'll be justified later with some stronger shadow work. Just go one tone darker with this in this bottom corner, and there we go. And that is all you need to do for the initial washes on the... Oh, and forgot, but we do need to paint in the path, and that can be done at the same time. And if you get a bit of merging of that colour, that's so much the better. There we are. Nice. It's well treated. It's been cut as more of a lawn feature. Okay, now we look at the building. We're only going to lay the colours on, and I can finish it off when we get home. The building, I'm going to use burnt sienna, cobalt blue, and any yellow really. I'm going to use cadmium as well in there, because we're looking for that Cotswold mellow sort of stone, very yellow I suppose. What about a bit of raw sienna? There you go. And that is for the main tower. And we'll do the shadows, what initially will be the shadow side first. Needs to be treated very, very simply. Remembering to leave white paper where necessary, because that's the key with all these painting scenes, it's particularly with watercolour. It's not what you paint in, it's what you leave out that would be crucial in the final outcome. Naples yellow I've used there, forgot to say that. Naples yellow. Don't very often use that. It's just that I had it in my box, so I thought I'd bang it in. Going to do a little bit under here. There is some wood work there. So that's that. I'm certain that tower stands upright. Oh, and there is a window there which I've forgotten to draw in, but I can put that in just by leaving the paper white. There we go. So that's the more or less the shadow side. We can put another shadow area on that later. And the sunlit side is very much lighter, and that purely is Naples yellow with nothing else. Very weak, perhaps a little bit stronger than that, but there we go. And that is the sunlit side. As I say, it's very, very weak. If you notice, I'm leaving some white paper in places because that's a sunlit area. I'm trying to pick up all of the sunlight lit areas. There is shadow on this, but we'll do that sunlit area there. There we go. And right, and another really sunlit area, almost white, just off colour, is just down that back edge, down that buttress there, and that buttress there. That one there could be very light. Oh, let's do the gravestones, that same colour. Now all we've got to do is to put on the roof work. So purely roof work, Naples yellow, light red this time. Always a lovely red to use in Cotswold stone. Light red, Naples yellow, and a little cobalt blue. That makes the whole thing go a mellow sort of Cotswold stone, slightly greeny grey possibly. Add a bit more red to that, a little bit more blue, just so as it don't go too green. The roof is fairly light, but it's obviously dark here. See that lovely Cotswold stone roof colour? It's a lovely colour for that. And this one is also quite dark. Painting with a very large brush. Very important that you paint with a large brush. Extremely important, that is. That's that roof. Oh, and there is a roof area here that I need to paint in at that point. Funny little roof area. Okay, and then a little more water, and then we'll paint in the main roof. Notice how I'm skipping across the paper. It's almost leaving some little patches of white. That is vital. That will give the whole thing a bit of interest. And that is what I class as the very first washes you will need to paint this subject. Okay, well, that's the first washes down. Just want to show you the composition, the church, as the shadows are right now, because that's the way I want to paint the shadows. Notice the buttress areas, particularly on the left, are just coming into sunlight, and consequently it improves the interest on the church straight away, really. Maybe one or two other little touches I just need to do to this one, and that I will do very, very shortly. Well, before I take this one back and finish it off later this evening, I just need to put in some additional touches. And Naples yellow, a little bit of cadmium, will give me the surrounds of those windows. Notice how yellow those are. And I'm going to paint all those in. Nice bit of sunlight there. And down that area there, perhaps. What else have we got? That lovely, oh, that surround there of the door surround. Not a great deal of window work in this subject, or that window there perhaps. Okay, so that's pretty much it for that part. Let's get a little bit of let's get one or two other little touches in. I'm not going to labour over this one. It's going to be quite a quick affair. Ultramarine and Prussian blue to create the glazed areas, and here we actually have louvers, so I'm going to just hint at those. When we get some shadow on there, it will improve the look of those immensely. That window there, and we have a main window there, a couple little there, and another little part of the window that can just be seen there. Okay, there is a little window there we can just see a part of. Not really much else. Oh, there's a window there, definitely, that needs to be put in. Good, so that's our window areas. Just one more area, a bit of white there, so that's the area around the edge of the gable, both gable ends. Right, okay, it's drying up nicely. Just going to balance a bit now. There is a dark bush there, and there is a little bit of overhanging willow. May very well pop that in. So that dark bush, let's get the overhanging willow. Naples yellow with Prussian blue and a little bit, just a tiny amount of burnt sienna. And I'm trying to dry the brush off, because I'm using that as a willow, so it hangs down. Notice I'm just dragging the brush across the paper. Just hangs down like that. A bit denser as we run out of picture. That's not going to dominate, it's not going to cause any major issues, just over the building a little bit there. There we go, so that suits that. That's all you need to show a willow coming in on the left, sorry, on the right. Now, this is where we get a bit more serious with the colour. Prussian blue, cadmium yellow, burnt sienna. Might as well use burnt sienna again. Could use, actually, let's use burnt umber. That will give me a nice dark, rich, dark green. Mainly burnt umber and Prussian blue. So the green, and that picks up the outside of the buttress and any little light areas that are catching around the building. There, that lovely buttress area that slopes down. Don't be too neat with this. And that goes up, and just behind that area there, it more or less just holds in that right hand side. Okay, so that's that. May as well just put a little bit of that in there as well. Nice to have a bit of balance that side, because we can see a little bit of that, and that comes in on that corner there. There you go, so that's the two sides. Really, it's the greenery now. Just a matter of giving the green a little bit of punch here and there, with some burnt sienna, Prussian blue, two little darker touches on the dark areas, just to denote grass area that stands up into the building. A bit more there, overlaps the path. Nothing too fussy, that's the key. Once you start getting fussy and detailed, it's quite a rough grass that overhangs there. And this is in shadow. The old technique where I rub on the paper to create texture. And there we go. That's that. Perfect. A bit more blue in there, just to tidy that up. Then we look at shadow work. Well, let's put the door in. Burnt umber, ultramarine, mainly burnt umber. Dark brown, burnt umber, ultramarine, and that's just the door itself. Just there. Paint that in. It's not open. But it's nice to get that in there like that. And all there is supporting this piece of roofing, there is some more dark brown as the aged oak support for that piece of roofing. Mainly being shadow, but I do think it needs to be put in to make it authentic for anyone that knows this church. Right, now we put the shadow, and the shadow will go in with a large brush. What sort of shadow have we got? Let's see if we can get a shadow here. Ultramarine. I'm going to use ultramarine for this. I'm going to use cadmium red. A colour I don't very often use, but let's give it a go. Gives a lovely purpley shadow colour. Don't go too dark. Strength of light will show up once we get the shadow on. These are quite ornate down here, but I'm only going to put them in fairly simply. Nothing too fussy, these areas. Going to do the dark side first, and you'll notice how by doing that you get a lovely film of sunlight. There's a little ridge there, so, and we may as well go over the windows as well. Be fine. And that ridge holds a bit of light, so we paint under that, leaving that white paper. Then we paint down. Remember, the shadow only comes down as far, comes across as far as that buttress. The buttress wasn't actually in shadow. Come down a little bit further like that, right the way over that window, down the edge of that buttress, and that buttress as well. That is in shadow. All the rest is not. Let's pull that up so we don't get in there. Round the gravestones, that buttress is in shadow. That's good. A bit more blue, a bit more red in there, and this is in complete shadow. So down as far as the buttress, which is there. Allow that paint to flood down. It's all. Once we start getting too fussy and too detailed, then that's when we lose the freshness of this sort of painting. Vital that tidy things up later on, but at this stage, inside the belfry area, there, inside the door area, there, that's in shadow, porch door, under there, been very loose, very free with this. Vital that you're not over fussing, because these are the sort of areas that really make a picture. There is just a little bit of shadow down the back edge there. Just taper that off. Go. That's looking quite healthy. I like the look of that. I always try and get these shadows down early on if you can. Bit of that up there. Right, there's a shadow under there. There's a shadow under there. Just picking up all of where the shadows are. Just picking up the shapes really. With the point of this large brush. Seems to be laying a lot of paint on, but that really would be a benefit to the overall composition really. There's a little bit of shadow work there. There certainly is down the left hand sides of those buttress areas. That shows those up quite nicely. All very loose, very free, very fresh. Gravestones, leaving a light edge down the right hand side, because that's where the sun is catching, and of course on the top, that's where the sun is catching. Go. A little bit under there, a little bit under there. It's good. Oh, and of course that will be in shadow. Forgot that. Vital that we put that in shadow. That will eventually meet up with that there. That's it. Good. And then we need some shadow in this casting from a tree out of picture. Well, that's that old willow tree to the left, or sorry, to the right of this, and it comes across, it goes up there, holds the line of that, because it doesn't go onto the back edge, it comes across there, and oh, of course it comes over there then. And then we have another one that goes across there and up the bank to the other side. Fairly wide area, opens at the... Yep, let that dry. Just got to put in a bit of detail, that's all. Sharpen it up. No, sharpen it up. Got a bit of sharpening to do, a bit of tidying. But, loads of tidying. It's quite easy to tidy it. How long we got?
It's not 1 o'clock.
10 minutes?
Yeah, 10 minutes, quarter of an hour.
Right.
It's not rush, Carl, because the thing is, we can go and get a shopping.
Okay. Okay.
We'll have a wheel and get there.
Well, I might as well turn this.
I mean,
Might as well finish it then.
we ain't going to be in there in the shop for 2 hours.
No. Okay. I'll finish it.
So, if you can.
Hmm. Okay. Final finishing touches. Burnt umber, ultramarine. Favourite colours for these little touches, brown, because we need to tidy up some areas. There is a little bit of interest on the tops of these buttress areas. Always try and pick up a little of the main interest that you can see. It's vital that some of these areas are put in. A little bit of ornate feel to that areas on top of the tower. It's only a matter of tidying. There is just a little bit here under the arch there. Some little touches on the louvers. It really is an area that makes the picture. You know, it's got the shadow. And I suppose in many ways these are showing up the shadow areas a little more, which I feel is useful to do. A bit darker there. Can you just see dark edge down the back there? So that's interesting. It just helps give. It's all a matter of an impression. That's what we're looking for. We're not looking for depicting anything specific. It's just an impression of what we see. And if we can achieve that, then it really is helping this composition work. There you go, that's that. This window here, well, may have a little bit more deepening there, and it does have a bit of architecture, a neat architecture along there. Hasn't really got a sill, but I'll indicate something. Quite a complicated little area this, but I'm trying to sharpen it up a little so that we can see where that buttress comes. There we are. It's quite, you know, it's quite an easy thing to do. There is another buttress there that I've actually left out, but maybe I'll just pick that up like that. There's also a chimney there, which is interesting. That's how I'm going to put that chimney in. I've forgotten about it, so it's going to go in like that and like that. There we go. Got a little thingy on the top. There we are. So that's quite sufficient to denote that chimney area. On that area there needs a little bit of drawing work under the gutter there and along there. These areas under gutters can be put in a little bit dark, just to tidy it up. Just be careful we don't overdo these dark areas. But as a sketch of a church, so all we're trying to do, achieve some form of interesting sketch. There's a window there, so I might as well put that in. Darken those a tad more. That's it. There is just a start of a window there. Can't see a great deal of it, but may as well put it in. Door may be a little darker down that side. And may as well put these beams in as well, because it's quite an interesting area that we need paint in, I think. Like an arc of beam work there. That's it. Now, burnt umber with a touch of ultramarine for these old gravestones. Now, they sit on the ground like that, but they've also got that one has a little bit of ornate detail to it, but we can't completely show all of that, but I think it's nice to try and indicate a little bit of that on that one. That's it, just a matter of tidying areas up really. And also suggestion, oh, that comes under there, right, that's alright. That's it, that's where that roof comes in. A suggestion of ridge tiles. It's always a good thing to do, not putting everyone in, but and also where that ridge finishes. Just put that across there. In just a suggestion of the ridge tiles there. Don't put too many in, but just to give an idea that we've got ridge tiles along there, that's it. It's very rustic, very old church, so we don't want to show too much in the way of detail. Let's just put one or two little indications of stones and what have you in there. Just a couple in here. Could use a rigger for this, but just to make it a little more neater. But when you're sketching like this, sometimes it's just as fresh and as neat just as interesting to actually put them in with a larger brush. Just gives a nice effect, I think, or a better effect anyway. And that has to be getting there. Just got to put one or two little touches in here, and there is a ridge along the top here, which I'm now going to put in. I've only just put that in, but that's still okay. You know, if you leave something out, just put it in right at the end. That's what I say. Just keep adding little touches here and there, standing back, looking at what you've done. Okay, well, I'm going to take the surround off and show you the finished. Okay, well, that's the finished painting. That's Oxenton Church in the Cotswolds. Lovely Cotswold church. Just going to make my way now to my accommodation. But I did finish that one off actually on site, and Over the week I will be painting a few more of the old stone buildings, so stay tuned to the channel. Thank you very much.